It's March 23, 1965. USS Intrepid is underway in the Atlantic, powered by its 150,000 horsepower steam propulsion plant. Today and every day, the sailors in the engine and fire rooms worked around the clock to keep the ship moving. But today's mission is unique. Intrepid will recover the two NASA astronauts on the Gemini 3 mission, Gus Grissom and John Young. They circled the Earth 3 times in 5 hours, and now their space capsule is landing miles off course. Intrepid has a lot of sea to cover to make the pickup on time. You will hear from 3 members of the crew who worked together to help move the 3,000 men and 30,000 tons of steel that made up Intrepid. The story starts on the navigation bridge, high above the flight deck. Here, the captain and the bridge crew controlled the movement of the ship.
Yes, sir, sure is. Which color obstacle is light or tall?
Gemini 3 has made re-entry. The capsule is landing off course. We better hurry up if we don't want to keep the astronauts waiting. Make flank speed.
There are my orders. The bridge helmsman next to me is setting our course, so all I have to worry about is the speed. First, I have to crank the engine order telegraph all the way down to the fastest speed I can signal. That's flank. Perfect. 29 knots means turning the ship's propellers at 227 revolutions per minute. I have to signal that too. I've done my job. The rest is up to the engineers working below decks.
Intrepid's engine room is 10 levels below the navigation bridge and just below the waterline. The engine room crew didn't always know where Intrepid was going, even if they were the ones making the ship go. But today is an exception.
Working as a throttleman means long hours standing here at main control adjusting the massive turbine engines with my throttle wheels. Look around. The big pipes above my head are carrying superheated steam to power the ship's engines. That steam has 600 pounds per square inch of pressure. More pressure than you'd feel if you were a quarter mile underwater. Those open blowers overhead are getting me some fresh air, so I try to stay underneath them whenever I can. A breeze feels pretty nice when you're dripping with sweat.
Increase throttle to flank speed, 29 knots.
We almost never go to flank speed. It must be time to get those astronauts. Better signal to the crew on the bridge that I've gotten their orders. Now it's time to open up the throttle and send more steam to my engine. Feeding this much steam into the turbines is making the whole ship shake, but I can't turn the wheel too fast, otherwise...
Boiler pressure dropping. Ease up on that throttle. The boiler men need to get up some more steam.
And here I was thinking I had it tough. Those guys know what heat really means.
The boiler men work next door to the engine room. They make the steam that is the lifeblood of Intrepid.
Standing watch in number 2 fire room means that, as usual, I've already sweated through my shirt. This close to the equator, it's 110 degrees on a good day. Check out this 60-ton boiler in front of me. Down here in the hole, we boilermen fire these up day and night to keep Intrepid on the job.
Kicking all the burners. We're going to need all the steam we can get to reach flank speed.
My boiler is working hard already, but one burner on the superheater side isn't hooked up yet. To get it running, I need to slot in an atomizer. That's what sprays in the fuel oil. Open up the fuel valve and get some oil flowing through this thing. The steam pressure's coming back up to 600. I can hear the checkmen up above me letting more water flow into the boiler. Those astronauts might have ridden a fancy rocket out to space, but it's steam that'll get them back home. That's how we did it. Working hard in the smoke and the heat, keeping our 20-year-old boilers running good as new.
I was proud to be down in the engine room that day. I knew that my throttle wheel was part of something bigger. Together, we got those astronauts back on solid ground.
I could see the red carpet from the navigation bridge. I knew that big welcome party couldn't have happened without my telegraph and the guys on the other end of it.
These are only 3 of thousands of stories of the crew members who worked below decks on Intrepid. Stories that are still being written today on thousands of ships around the world. You are entering the engine room. Here, steam turbines generated the energy that moved the ship.
Welcome to Intrepid's forward engine room. Rank up as a machinist mate by exploring the blue hotspots and finding crew who will train you. Open the map to find the crew.
Down from the bridge like 1/3 ahead or whatever, and then there was a brass thing that read out 3 numbers, told you how many revolutions to put on that shaft. You would open the valve and crank it up to whatever revolutions they wanted you to make.
So you had to open it up gradually open it up. And if you opened it up too fast, they didn't have the steam to compensate. You could pull a boiler off the line, and that's a no-no. You didn't do that.
Flying speed, it would really shake, and you have to watch the bearings.
And I mean, it shakes, but pretty cool seeing that bad boy running like 32 knots across the water, man.
Big air ducts that come down from top side that had a fan on them, and they blew a lot of cool air down there.
It's terrible, hot, and you stand underneath these big blowers and you can't hear anything.
Not like the ones now where they're air conditioned, probably.
You are entering the fire room, where boilers made steam to power the engines.
Welcome to Intrepid's number 2 fire room. Raise your rank as a boilerman by exploring the blue hotspots and finding crew members to train you. If you can't find the crew, open the map.
These burners heated Intrepid's boilers, creating the steam that drove the ship's engine. The burners created two different types of steam, saturated and superheated. Saturated steam is wet. Think of the steam rising from a kettle, but a blistering 489 degrees Fahrenheit, 253 Celsius. On Intrepid, saturated steam helped to clean laundry, cook food, purify water, and blow the ship's whistle, but it couldn't be used in the engine. Before going to the engine, steam went to the superheater, where it reached temperatures up to 850 degrees Fahrenheit, 454 Celsius. Superheated steam is dry, eliminating moisture that would damage the turbines. Superheated steam was used to create electricity, run the catapults, and power the engine. It was the superheated steam that made Intrepid move.
burner watch pushes in the burners and pulls the burners out with one eye on the steam gauge, because you got to keep that steam gauge at 600 psi. You had to wear the sound-powered phones, so sometimes we'd get a heads up that they were going to change speeds. Burner man would get the first one to get the word.
When the pressure was going down below 600, you had a handle here. You're allowing more fuel. You pull it down, and if that takes care of it, you're fine. But if you got to where you're at the max, then you have to throw another burner in, which induces another flame inside, which causes more heat. You gotta squeeze the handle, and the burner's here, and you got a valve that you turn. So you through it all at the same time, and this allows more fuel, oil, and this allows the air to go in. But sometimes you got to work fast. Sometimes one's not enough. You throw another one in. There, throw one in over there.
Every so often, when there's, if you're in port, the guys in the boiler rooms shut down everything and they have to go inside the boilers. There's tubes in there. There must seem like about 1,000 tubes in there. They go all around the boiler. That's where the water goes through. You have to get in there what they call punch tubes. And there's this pneumatic drill that goes in there and cleans all the tubes up.
And that was probably the worst job I ever did, was short punch in the mud drum. It was actually technically the water drum, but we called it the mud drum because if there was any residue in the water, it would settle out in the bottom. And then somebody, me, would have to go in the bottom in the mud drum and short punch back up. So it was 3 or 4 or 5 inches every tube. It wasn't too good on my lungs, but somebody had to do the dirty work.
Them guys come out of there, they just like the color of that blacktop out there on the highway. It's so sooty and dirty, but it's got to be done.
Well, the work was all right. It was just hot.
Fire room was well over 100 degrees. Very, very hot. Well, they encouraged you all the time to take salt pills. And then, of course, they brought the prisoners down there to work as hard labor with us, which we thought that was a big joke, too, you know, because we worked there every day.
But I was taking the prisoners on hard labor, and I took them down to the engine room. They were hot, and it was miserable down there. And then one kid said, I can't take this. It's just too hot down here. I can't work. I said, oh, really? I said, okay. Well, see those guys down there on that engine? Yeah, they do this every day. So I don't think you need to be complaining about being hot.
I was thinking to myself how much more fortunate I was. Machinist mate instead of PT, boiler technician. Those men could work in extremely hot heat right in front of those boilers.
It's hot, but not such a bad place. It prepared me for Florida.
station on the second level that would check the water. You had 2 sight glasses that kind of overlapped, and you could see the level of the water in the boiler. So the ship's moving, so the level of the water in the check glasses is moving up and down constantly.
Well, you had to have some experience before they break you in on checks, because the worst thing that could happen in a fire room is to lose sight of the water level if you're not watching it every minute. The problem is you don't know if it's high or if it's low. And if it's high, the water carries over into the steam line, all hell breaks loose, it starts banging. Low water, tubes could burst because the water would drop down below the top of the tube that goes into the steam drum. You have to do in a situation like that is screen down below, water out of sight, and you shut the check off. So that was why it was a critical job.
For decades, Intrepid's boilers burned Bunker B, a heavy, low-grade fuel oil. The ship consumed more than 1,600 gallons of fuel an hour while cruising, so it had to be refueled frequently. The ship typically refueled while out at sea. An oiler would pull up alongside Intrepid. The 2 ships had to maintain constant speed and separation while attached by a delicate network of refueling hoses. A sailor called the Oil King oversaw the refueling process. From the ship's oil shack, the Oil King tracked oil supplies and tested feed water and fuel oil quality. Intrepid's Oil King was usually a mid-career enlisted sailor. He earned his crown by keeping the ship well supplied and ready to make steam.
The extremes would be when we'd be at sea trials after coming out of the yards. We would go for a period of time and get it going as fast as we could go. The engine men are trying to maneuver the turbines as much as they can. Then you start doing other little tricks, because you want to keep ahead of them.
We'd cheat. We'd run 615 pounds, and then you could play with the superheat too. You could go over 850. I've seen 875 to get more juice out of it. I've seen the ship do 32 knots. Gets rated at 31 and a half. I've seen it's done 32.
The 2 main shafts to the outboard propellers run through that fire room. When they would go to dead stop and then reverse, you could see them moving and flexing, and the boilers would expand and contract because they would go from making all the steam that they could down to next to nothing, and then back up to all that they could make in that period of time. It was scary.
4 bronze propellers moved Intrepid. 4 propeller shafts connected the propellers to the engines. Each propeller was 15.5 feet, 4.6 meters in diameter, and weighed 27,000 pounds, 12,000 kilograms. With all 4 propellers turning at maximum speed, the ship could reach 32 knots, 37 miles per hour or 57 kilometers per hour. You are entering the fire room, where boilers made steam to power the engines. You are entering the navigation bridge. The crew steered the ship and sent orders to the engine room from here.
Welcome to Intrepid's pilot house. Learn more and raise your rank by opening blue hotspots and getting training from the crew at the helm.
The U.S. Navy has used steam to power its largest ships since the 19th century. Sailors on early steamships burned coal in large furnaces to heat water in the boilers. Working with coal was labor-intensive. When a ship needed to resupply, the entire crew spent a day packing and hauling bags of coal. In the early 20th century, the Navy turned to oil, a cheaper and more efficient source of power. Intrepid and other aircraft carriers burned thousands of gallons of oil an hour to generate steam. Today's aircraft carriers run on nuclear energy. The nuclear reactors are sealed deep within the ship, so sailors in the reactor department monitor and maintain them from a distance. Nuclear reactors generate more power, providing enough energy to run modern electronic systems. Most importantly, nuclear-powered ships are self-sufficient. They can cruise for more than 20 years without refueling.
Four guys would be up there and they would rotate through the steering. You'd have 2 on and 2 off because you'd have the helmsman and the lee helmsman. The helmsman steering the ship, the lee helmsman operating the engine order telegraph.
In 10 to 15 minutes, you realize, yeah, this is not fun. This is a job that you got to pay.
4 bronze propellers moved Intrepid. 4 propeller shafts connected the propellers to the engines. Each propeller was 50 You are entering the navigation bridge. The crew steered the ship and sent orders to the engine room from here.
My cellular is operating. Yes, sir, sure is. Which color ops tells it it's light, it's all